Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, members of the media. Thank you, Mr. President, for taking the time to be with us here today. We have here members of the media, the local press, regional press, and international correspondents, and we are ready to start when you are, sir. You can take the first.
Well, first of all, as we are here, I'm sure there are many things that are happening in the whole world. Some of them very exciting, others depressing, others a mixture of the two, then different things happen for different reasons. As we have discovered, every time is something that is factual. Others, I think you have come to call them fake news. Others, all kinds of stuff we deal with in this world. But I think today, my main thing, I can't, I don't have the powers to do that in any case. Even you people with a lot of influence and a lot of good ideas don't have the powers to change the world as you want it, just like me. But we have to deal with a few things that we can shape and maybe make some headways. So I'm sure we'll talk about things that concern us mainly, at least Rwanda and the region and our continent, and to begin with, then the rest of the world we can also talk about it, but my preference is that we talk about things that concern us directly. We can digress and go into other parts and issues of the rest of the world. But so you're welcome, and let's go about things the way you think is fit for us.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're now ready to take questions. If you could please introduce yourself, your media house, and please stick to one question. Take a question from Bloomberg.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Saul Butera. I work for Bloomberg. Your Excellency, the government has plans of building a rail line from Isaka to Kigali of 1.3 billion. How is the government planning to raise this money? Are you considering...
How is government planning to do what?
Raise to fund this project, the
financing of the project.
Mm-hmm. Is the government also considering raising a Eurobond to fund it? And when is the project planned to start? Thank you very much.
Right. A couple of things. One, we have the desire to build a railway that serves us, and starting with Dar es Salaam, the port we use for goods exports or imports. Dar es Salaam, Isaka, Kigali, possibly beyond. In fact, DRC, Eastern Congo, is interested. Maybe it can go all the way to the other side of the Atlantic, or connected to Bujumbura, some parts of Burundi, either coming together up to the border and then the divergence, depending on what is possible. and so on and so forth. The desire is there. We've been thinking about it. Some studies have been made already. They are done for now some time. Yes, building a railway is capital intensive, no doubt. But we have also seen that the returns are very high if it were to be done, and the benefits for the country or countries that would be associated, no question about that. The sources of funding, finance, are there, and you can use multiple sources. It doesn't have to just be one or the other. You can use multiple. You can use the African Development Bank. You can use countries that offer such facilities. You can use European Investment Bank, the Bank of Infrastructure in Asia. The US actually showed interest, but the interests have been shown both public and private. And in fact, to make it easy and less costly, we want to use a combination of public and private financing. So we have had experts look at it. In fact, African Development Bank has been very central and helpful in obtaining the data and other things necessary, including that they will participate in the financing. So even if we had the money and had the need and the desire, it's not going to go according to our wish all the time, because there are other partners we've got to talk to. They have their different views, ideas, sentiments of different kinds. Sometimes politics steps in. So we will have to work around all these problems. And it's normal, I find it normal that there will be these challenges, they are expected. So we are really working very hard, and even the recent weeks and months, some activities have been going on around that, mainly between Rwanda and Tanzania, where the railway would originate from and go through. And according to the master plan the Tanzanians might have, or to the East African railway or infrastructure master plan, and also then how Rwanda fits into that. All these things have to be brought into some kind of harmony to give us what we want to have. So that's how. So I think we are getting closer and closer to having something to get started on, including the funding.
Next question from the New Times.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Feli Chimeni. So, respectfully, allow me to bring you back to the fake news issue. Much as fake news is fake news and should probably be ignored and treated as such, it raises concern when certain reputable media organizations start picking on it to project an image of a country. So how does this reflect on Rwanda, and how is the best way to confront this? Thank you so much.
Well, it's a kind of complicated situation we have to deal with. But I don't know whether to say, on the other hand, we are not alone in this. Seems everybody is affected by this. I'm actually, it's a very interesting, but that's no consolation. I have got to deal with my part. The others will deal with their part as well. What does fake news mean? Well, it means false things presented as facts about you, about any other situation. That's the meaning. And maybe it has a reason. It has this origin, it has a reason, it has... people get involved with all this. It's very interesting in the sense that this has been there, by the way, for a long time, for many years. But it never came out as such because some people in this world, as we know it, who shape the world, had not been affected. So as long as they were not being affected, they were only affecting others, so it wasn't worth paying attention to. So actually Rwanda has suffered fake news for all I know the last 25 years. But because it was Rwanda or some other African countries, I guess, it was not newsworthy, it wasn't something to, because the powers that be who are creating it or using it or shaping it the way they want had never been affected by fake news. Until recently, when they started getting affected by fake news that originates from their own media and things like that. Originally, they were used to this affecting others, not them. When they started affecting them, then it was as if fake news was just born a year ago or 2 years ago. But it originated from where that thing always came from. It is interesting when I started seeing, I'm sure you all follow, I was seeing even yesterday or something, when some arguments, some stories were being discussed about Facebook. You saw that? Facebook was telling lies or creating stories about Google or doing something about false political adverts, then something happening between the US and Europe, then vice versa. Now that becomes very interesting. Now that becomes, the fake news is the story, because it's like saying we're used to doing it against others. Now it seems we are using it against each other. So then they start. So isn't it interesting that we have this kind of situation? So anyway, let me deal with my part. Fake news is an old story. It originates from how some people who think they're entitled to do that, think about Rwanda, about Africa, even how they want to shape the story about Rwanda or Africa, still thinking they're entitled to it. So I don't know what particularly you had in mind, because you have asked a general question just about fake news and how it affects us and so on. But there are particular cases. I don't know that I have to bring them out myself, or you had some in mind, but that is, you asked about the general question, the fake news. The fake news is fake news, and you have to deal with it. And meaning fake news is a reality in terms of its existence. So it is there. So we have to deal with it. Well, sometimes you can ignore it. Other times you've got to say something about it and make clarifications about a particular situation. So you've got to weigh a lot of things. So what is it? You look at what is the cost of doing something against it, or the cost of ignoring it. And then you proceed as you wish. Also, the reason for fake news is to try and distract you. So that we spend money, we spend time, we spend all kinds of things explaining ourselves about this, about that. So sometimes you may concentrate on doing what you think is right for you to do, and that gives you progress, and ignore. But if the fake news has that level that will affect people and influence them to think wrongly about you, then you got to come out and tell people that it's not true. But we live in that complexity of things that are back and forth on a number of issues. So that's about fake news.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next question from KT Press.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Danny Gavanziza. I work for KT Press. Mr. President, Rwanda and Qatar recently signed different agreements, and I would like to know how strategically Rwanda is going to benefit from these agreements. Thank you.
Yes, we have a good relationship, partnership with Qatar, and around that we are working on several things in the area of investments that are going to serve well Rwanda and Qatar. One of them is a partnership around the airport, around the airline, other things in agriculture, in hospitality, and tourism sector, and many things. So our people have been working together to shape it in a way that we can expedite things, we can make the right investments that will give us all good returns, and the movement of people, have been sorted out. that has been sorted out as well. So it's a healthy partnership that we are continuing to develop.
Next question from Imran Hussain.
Thank you, Excellency. My name is Atwagira Wilson. I work for Invahunsha. By the sake of my audience, it was with Rwanda.
That is what?
Invahunsha.
Okay.
Invahunsha. Nyakubahwa Perezida w'u Rwanda ugiye kwakira program. Ni ku nshuro ya mbere yakiriye nyuma y'ikora ryo muri uriya muryango. Ni kiri ku table mugiye gusangiza, Rwanda ruzasangiza bariya bashyitsi bavuye mu bihugu bisaga 53. Ni kiri ku table. Murakoze cyane.
Turi abanyamuryango bashya bo muri Commonwealth. Turi muri iyi miryango ibaho, hari ubwo iyo tujya kuyijyamo tureba inyungu tubifitemo. Turi mu muryango w'abavuga igifaransa, turi mu muryango w'abavuga icyongereza, abavuga igiportugize not yet, ntabwo turabageramo. Turabanje abo tubona dufite, ndavuga ibyo hanze cyane cyane, naho ibindi bya Afurika byo birumvikana, nabyo hari ibyo turimo, hari ibyo tutarimo. Ariko so tubirimo byombi, bivuga icyongereza, ibivuga byose bifite abantu barenze ibihugu birenze 50 either side. Iyo miryango rero kubana n'ibihugu biba birimo, mukorana byinshi, murahahirana, by'ubucuruzi, uburezi, ibintu byinshi, n'iby'umutekano n'ibindi byinshi, ariko ukabyita ndetse rimwe na rimwe ko harimo n'iby'umuco abantu basangira, bituma buri muntu wese uri mu muryango yiyumvamo ko bimufitiye akamaro. Turi mu rutonde rero rw'abantu buri gihe, nyuma y'imyaka 2 hari aho inama zibera, hari no guhamagarira ibihugu bishobora kwakira abantu aho iyo nama izabera. Twari mu bagize gusaba ko twakwakira iyo nama ikabera hano, hanyuma biza kunyura mu buryo bigomba kunyuramo, baza gusanga u Rwanda bakwishimira ko kwakira iyo nama, natwe kandi dusanga dufite ibyangombwa byatuma twakira iyo nama. Bizaba rero umwaka utaha muri June, ukwezi kwa 6. Ibintu byose biri ku murongo, ndabona bigenda neza. Turabitegurana n'abayobora uwo muryango bandi, turakorana n'ibihugu bindi biwurimo kugira ngo nabyo bifashe kugira icyo byafasha ngo inama igende neza. Ndabona ibyangombwa byose biri ku murongo, nta kibazo mbona gihari.
Next question from Kigali today.
Thank you, Excellency. My name is Edmund Kajira. I work for Kigali today. My question is on the Great Lakes region. Your Excellency, as you might know, there's a situation in DRC, Eastern DRC particularly. This morning there was a hashtag trending saying "Save Murenge." So it appears there's a group of people who are being attacked by some negative groups operating in Eastern DRC. Your Excellency, as we know, there is an initiative which was started by President Tshisekedi to work together to eliminate some of these groups that operate in Eastern DRC. So I wanted to get an update from you in as far as this cooperation is concerned. And also on the East African community, Your Excellency, there seems to be a lull in the relationship between the EAC partner states. We haven't had a Heads of State Summit in recent months. What's happening in the region and the relationship with Uganda notwithstanding, what are you doing to ensure that regional integration remains on course? Thank you, Your Excellency.
For the situation in Eastern Congo, the southern part of Eastern Congo, in many areas, I've heard about it, I've read about it. But the story of the new president of DRC having brought up the idea of neighboring countries working together to address security issues was welcome, good news. But it's not just to address one problem and not the other. The approach was to look at the whole history of these problems of insecurity and different non-state groups that have been roaming the region and causing insecurity, and how we can deal with them as countries, especially working together. And there have been meetings bringing together the chiefs of the national armies of these neighboring countries and the security organs. They've been working even with the UN that is in the Congo, so that they can formulate how to work together, address all these problems that cause insecurity. Again, there are different ideas that come up, some of them, so they keep narrowing the gaps that are there in the understanding of how to deal with the situation, or even what to deal with in the situation. I think largely there is progress, but of course, on the other hand, unfortunately, the problems go on, and these problems take people's lives. So the DRC government, president wanted to address that problem of Minembwe, but the Minembwe problem involves different groups from different countries. So the best way to approach it was not to go it alone, and I think they were right to say countries should get together and first of all raise what each country to raise what they are concerned with, and then together work on each problem, so that gives us a better chance to eliminate the problem than if each one pursued their own problem or worked alone. So that is still going on. Hopefully, will not continue to take many lives as I have heard it is in Embo areas. If we can find a way of arresting the situation, the sooner the better. For the East African community integration and progress, one, I think the East African community has made good progress, is continued to make progress. And people are right to say the progress is slow. I wish we could move faster myself. I wish we could be over with many things that still stand in the way of us getting where we want to be. But again, integration is not just something automatic. Integration means different entities coming together for a common cause, and naturally people will start seeing things differently. It doesn't matter whether they are right or wrong. That happens. It's natural. That people will sometimes will bring non-issues or create problems where they were not. But that's what happens with the people and with the politics and the interests. People. So the task of all of us to achieve broader and deeper integration is to keep working at it and making sure we understand fully that integration, you've got to give something, you've got to get something, and you've got to not just think about yourself and what you have in it, but you've got to be having some level of thinking for others as well and what they benefit from it. And then overall, really the benefits. If we have a population of 160 million people who, after all, have more in common than the differences they have, working together, and this is a huge force, both politically, economically, socially, name it. There's no question about it. So if we keep that prize in sight and focus on it, on 60 million people together, the strength, the benefits, the progress, and then continue working on the differences. We may have some of them that make sense, others don't make sense, most of them don't make sense. But if you have concerns that make sense, then people still sit down and talk about it and find a way around it so that you get what you want, I get what I want, all of us get what we want. It's not an easy task. For me, I understood it from the beginning that integration doesn't mean you walk in and you have everything you want about it where it didn't exist. So we are very conscious of that fact that things don't work in that straightforward fashion as you would wish. Now, about the meetings and so on. Actually, the meeting, or the lack of meetings, as you said, shouldn't be even an indication of any problem. The problems are somewhere else. It's not because the meeting has not taken place. The problems are these ones I'm talking about, which happen or may not happen. Whether you have had as many meetings as the number of months you have in a year. But the meeting will happen, and it has all along been designed. In fact, the official summit is always designed to be there once a year. And all along it was this year, it was supposed to be in November. And it is going to be in November. Towards the end of November, we are going to have an EAC summit. We have even had before 2 years without a summit. But might have had reasons. But for this year, we have a summit, which was intended for November. We are still in November. And we're going to have a summit. But between the summits, many other meetings take place involving the ministers, different heads of institutions, of partner states, and those meetings have actually been going on to streamline things, that are going to be tabled for the November summit. So, and then you mentioned something about Uganda.
Yes, I mentioned, I said, Your Excellency, that perhaps this would be an opportunity for you to give us an update on the implementation of the Rwanda agreement.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
I'm not going to repeat the problems we have had. I think I had time to have lengthy discussion around it, and many people have followed and made their own minds about what the issues are and the possible ways they can be resolved. But at one point, it came to having the leaders of the two countries meet, discuss how we can resolve whatever issues at hand. That resulted into 2 meetings we had in Angola, and the second meeting resulted into a package of some understanding and commitment we can make in resolving the issues. And following that, there was a meeting in Kigali, bringing together Rwanda's officials and Uganda's officials to talk about what needed to be done. I think that meeting went well, and again, there was supposed to be another meeting 30 days after that in Uganda. I think the 30 days were supposed to have 16th of October. It didn't happen. Maybe for, I don't know, I'm not fully knowledgeable about why it didn't happen, but I'm fully aware that it didn't happen. So I think there is another, now instead of that, then in fact, after the 16th of October, we learned that another date, wait a minute. The official communication about the meeting that was supposed to be taking place on the 16th of October, now being suggested for 13th of November, did not reach us until we read it in the papers. Then after reading it in the papers, we received the official letter. Well, that has its own meaning, which I know, again, I'm not very knowledgeable about. But nonetheless, when it was approaching the 13th of November, we haven't reached there yet, right? Sometimes I forget which month we are in, so we got another indication that it may actually not be now taking place on the 13th of November, it might be when? Which? 18th. So we are okay with that, with whichever days anybody, for whatever good reasons they have, they suggest. Or even if anyone comes up and says, you know what, we don't need any meeting, we will respect that. But for sure, the meetings were supposed to resolve the outstanding issues that have created a misunderstanding between But one important thing I would wish to talk about that originated from the previous meeting that took place here and is likely to be an issue whenever the meeting takes place, or even if it doesn't take place, that still remains an issue, is the origin of this problem. Having been, I think, you've been aware of all kinds of accusations flying here and there, but at least for us, the origin is having people whom we have seen in on a trial with the judiciary, who have been fomenting trouble inside the country, in neighboring countries, and having a connection and origin with otherwise brother neighbor. And we talked about that well before. We discussed it, we raised it with Uganda. There was always denying there is no connection on that, until you have people who actually who are in custody, who are going through the courts of law, who are even providing evidence, because they've been a part of that whole instability that was aimed at us. Then the second problem being the Rwandans who have been arrested over a long period of time. You are aware of people, because some of them have been released, it has been on camera, it's not fake news, it's real. People have received them at the border, and they tell the stories of how some of them have been in prison for 2 years, 10 months, 9 months, 6, a month, 6 weeks. And the story is consistent with all of them, of how they are arrested. One, they say they were in Uganda illegally. Or the initial story we had been told, these people are arrested because they are spies, meaning Rwanda is interested in knowing things in Uganda. Of course, the implication is Uganda is not interested in knowing things in Rwanda. So the spying is one way. I have not known history that tells me that you have that situation happening one way, if it were to be true. But that's okay. That we shouldn't take much time on that. But then the issue also became, okay, if you have people who you think are there illegally or have committed crimes or are spying, and do you really arrest people, pile them up in their hundreds, and you fail to put one, even one, in the court of law and have them charged and tried? Just even one out of 100. So the moment that you say you cannot do that, or you are not able to do that, it tells a different story. And this has always been our concern. We have always heard them say, we respect your sovereignty, we respect your institutions, but you are arresting Rwandans, and the reasons you are giving don't add up. From the beginning, from the first group they arrested. But we also told our brothers and sisters there that we actually know the story, that where these arrests originate from, and even the source. It's the same people that we have arrested who are here, the same organizations that are operating in our neighboring countries and beyond, that because they are of association with this country, they started saying, you know, these Rwandans know that we are here, or they have accused you of us operating here. How do they get the information? They must be getting information by having Rwandans who come here knowing this story. And then they are the ones who started showing the government institutions there. You see somebody and say, this man must be working for government. This man is not your friend. You know, even some, in fact, what is interesting is that some of them, and even the ones you have here, or those who have been released, they were arrested after some people had approached them to recruit them into these organizations, these rebel groups, and they refused. When they refused, then the punishment is, okay, you are refusing because you are with the government. So then they tell the security people that this must be an agent of Rwanda. And, but from the beginning, we had told people that, in fact, you know also that we advise our people not to travel to Uganda for the very reason we have had relatives of these people who are arrested, who have been arrested, coming to government institution and saying, no, we've got somebody missing when they went to Uganda for this, we got this, then. So I said, but we raised it with the Uganda government through the embassy and foreign affairs there in Uganda. Every time we got such a complaint, we raised it. Every time we raised it. There are hundreds of them. And then we told Rwandans, we see, when it comes to you people being arrested in Uganda, there's little we can do about it, other than raising it with the government institutions and the government. And the response we get all the time is that these people have gone there to do wrong things, and they have been incarcerated, and nothing, so there's nothing. So the only advice we can give others whose family members or friends have not been arrested is just don't go there. But we continue to tell Ugandans that they are free to come here whenever they want. If they don't want to come, still we have no quarrel with anyone. So I don't know, maybe I gave you too much more than you really asked for, but the story adds up to the fact that, yes, the efforts have been there, we are still pursuing them, but they may not be. Oh, but something happened. Immediately we had this meeting here, or a few days after the meeting had taken place here. I think they released a number of people. Also, by the way, when I say they released, they don't officially hand them over. No, they bring them in the middle of the night and and dump them across the border. But in the same period, there is, I think, 30 something, some number at over 30, less than 40. But at the same time, arrested others after that. So it has been released, arrested. And then, of course, that, by the way, has, because we were discouraging people to go to Uganda, something that initially was for a different reason when the Katuna border, some border areas were, the traffic was very slow because it was being worked on, the road was undergoing construction. But then that now ended up, mixed up in the situation. It's like, if the traffic going this side, you are arresting people much as we allow people to come over here. So this border point and some other border points remained things going slow or closed down already. But we have other border lines operating Kajitumba, Chanika. So, and then the demand from the other side is you must open the borders. And they say, yeah, we will open the borders. But how about the origin of the problem? You want to open the borders, but the borders which will only be one way, and the other ones who use it, you arrest them. So why don't you just, because if you are talking about trade, you want open borders, but you arrest people using the border points. So do you want goods to just move like these driverless vehicles? They just cross the border without people. It's going to be difficult to find sacks of beans moving on their own without people on the road is going to be difficult. So anyway, it's some kind of mess which I believe and still believe we can sort out. We should be better than this. We know better than this. We should be better than this. We can definitely do better.
Next question is from RBA.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Jean Pierre Kagabo nkorera RBA. Nyakubahwa Perezida, reka tubashimire umwanya muduhaye mu gihe tuzirikana umunsi nyafurika w'itangazamakuru. Ikibazo cyanjye kiraza kwibanda ku mutekano w'igihugu ndetse n'akarere ku ruhande rumwe, ariko wenda muje no kugira icyo muvuga kuri uyu munsi wacu byaza kuba ari byiza. Turabizi ko guverinoma.
By the way, this press conference was by coincidence. I didn't know it was. Yeah. I'm not actually even learning about it.
Byanafatiye ariko ku gaciro muduha nyakubahwa Perezida, mugize icyo munavuga ku itangazamakuru.
Agaciro mbaha by coincidence. Okay.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nashaka kubaza ikibazo kijyanye n'umutekano. Muri imyaka 25 ishize ubuyobozi bwacu bw'u Rwanda bwakomeje kurinda umutekano w'igihugu nk'uko umuntu yarinda imboni y'ijisho. Umutekano koko ha mu bipimo mpuzamahanga urahari, ariko hari ingero twagiye tubona n'abashaka kuhungabanya. Reka nshingire ku byo muherutse gutangaza mu mezi nk'atanu ashize ubwo mwasuraga abaturage mu majyaruguru no mu burengerazuba bw'igihugu, mwijeje abaturage ko umutekano hari kandi ko n'abagerageza kuhungabanya bazagera imbere y'ubutabera. Hari abo twabonye bagiye baza, ariko nshingiye nko kubaherutse guhungabanya umutekano mu Kinigi no mu bindi bice by'uburengerazuba n'amajyepfo y'igihugu, nabo bagiye bafatwa. Nyakubahwa Perezida, ese uko bari bagenda bafatwa bitanga ubuhe buryo bwo kurushaho gusesengura iki kibazo? Amakuru batanga ubu twavuga ko kiriya kibazo kimeze gute? Abanyarwanda mwababwira yuko umutekano uhagaze gute? Siriya mitwe twumva ni imitwe koko ihagaze ite uyu munsi tuvuga? Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, rero tukaba twifuzaga no kumva nyine uko umutekano uhagaze mu Rwanda uyu munsi n'uko uhagaze mu karere. Murakoze.
Nta cyo numva cyahindutse ku bijyanye n'umutekano w'u Rwanda, urahari uhagije. Ariko ibyo byose navuze usubiramo ni ukuvuga ngo igihugu gifite umutekano usesuye uhagije, ndetse twifuza kandi ko mpamya ko ari umutekano urambye. Ariko nyine hari n'iyo mitwe nk'uko mara mbivuga cyangwa nayibuze na cya gihe, ibintu bizwe ntabwo ari ibanga. Ariko ukuri ko ni ukuri, ubundi kuri kwa gatatu si ibyo nyine bibiri mvuze, ni uko nibwira ko igihugu umutekano wacyo ushingiye ku baturage, bushingiye ku bushake bw'abaturage kubera ko buri wese akeneye n'uwo mutekano noneho n'izindi nzego zirebana n'umutekano ubushake zifite cyangwa ubushobozi zifite nibwira ko umutekano w'igihugu uzahora hari abawugerageza ariko ntabwo nibwira ko hari icyo byahindura ku mutekano cyangwa imibereho y'igihugu nicyo nahamya ko ntacyo byahindura ariko biriya ibyo by'abagezwa imbere y'ubutabera birimo nabyo nyine ni ikimenyetso cy'uko hari ibikorwa kugira ngo igihugu gihangane n'icyo kibazo kandi kuba bafatwa bagashyirwa mu butabera nabyo ni ikindi kimenyetso cy'ubwo bushobozi nyine buriho mu guha abanyarwanda umutekano ndetse tunahamagarira iteka abanyarwanda nabo kugira uruhare muri uwo mutekano ibyo rero nabyo bifite nyine urundi rwego biganisha ku mutekano rusange w'akarere kuko abo bamwe bagiye bafatiwe mu bihugu duturanye bamwe bavuye muri Congo abandi bavuye mu bindi bihugu twagiye tugira urwego rwo gukorana n'ibyo bihugu bimwe na bimwe kugira ngo tubagereho kuko niho babaga bategurira guhungabanya umutekano w'u Rwanda rero ibyo bivuze ni icyo bivuze ni ukuvuga ngo niba hari aho bashingira mu bihugu bindi kwitegura guhungabanya umutekano w'u Rwanda ubwo byabaye umutekano muke w'akarere niyo mpamvu no mu karere ibihugu bishaka gufatanya nk'iriya nama yavuzwe na mbere cyangwa inama ziba igihe gitandukanye kugira ngo izo nama zisuzume ibibazo by'umutekano rusange ari mu Rwanda ari no mu karere dutuyemo ibindi n'ibyo mubona hanze cyangwa muzi nta kintu gihishe cyangwa nta umuntu yahimba ibihari birigaragaza ni ugukomeza rero twebwe kurinda umutekano mu gihugu cyacu gufatanya n'abandi mu karere ngo turinde umutekano mu karere ibyo twiteguye gukomeza ubwo buryo.
Next question from Elbe.
RwandaTV Albert, Contact. Mr. President, lately we had a surprise to see in the press that British lawmakers were requesting something from you. We had the Minister of Justice, we saw it, his reply in the press, but what is your take on it, Mr. President?
Well, first of all, by the way, I never received any letter. I read the letter supposedly sent to me in the news, in the social media and other places. So I never received any letter. But I guess some institutions of government maybe received the letter. First of all, the letter must have been addressed wrongly from the beginning. I don't see, well, maybe they called it, was it an open letter or something? Maybe it was an open letter, still addressed to me, but I think it was addressed wrongly for British MPs to address a letter to me talking about justice or judicial matters in our country I don't understand the basis. I don't see the basis. Before I even talk about the facts of the case they are talking about, I think it is wrong. And why is it wrong? There are many things one can say. I just pick one. Are you aware of a case, a case that has been ongoing? There are many cases, but one particular one that has been going on in the UK about genocidaires who have lived in the UK for over 10 years. In fact, the case has been going on for over 10 years. Maybe they've even lived there for 20 years. Where people, known, evidence provided, requests made about people who, I think they're about 4 or 5. There are 5. And the issue hasn't even been that, no, these people are not guilty of anything, or that we found them, the people are accusing you are talking about are actually innocent people. No. It's just a game playing about, these people, you see, we can't give them to you. We even said, because your justice system is like this, we said, okay, don't give them to us. All we are asking for is justice. Here is the evidence of what these people are involved in. Try them in your courts. Then the issue says, no, our courts, our laws cannot try them. Then he said, so what do you want us to do? Then I think they went into some details about whether they can try them or not. Then they found they can't try them. So the issue is not about, are these people guilty of what they are being accused of, murdering, massacring, in a genocide, people of Rwanda or not? Because that would have been the substance. Either to find us telling lies about these cases, or half-truths, or what, then okay. Then one could be saying, no, but what I don't understand is the kind of justice we are talking about for these murderers. Vis-a-vis the requests we have even given. So, such a people with, we are also told many times there are people supposedly who have values above other people's values, respect the rule of law and things like that. That's fine. I won't dispute anybody's righteousness about things. If they want to be and can practice it, that's fine. So if these people were really talking about the concerns they have about justice for people, and think, don't you think the first place these MPs should have taken their concerns is within their own system? But if they are concerned about justice, so how about the justice for the people of Rwanda who were killed in a genocide? And the people who were part of it directly, not indirectly, directly, are sitting there in a country, and the country is, one would even say, protecting them. Because I think they have even been given, what is it? Is it residence? Is it citizenship? Or,
They have different forms of residency.
They are legally there. So, and by legally protected against. So, I would have said, MPs in a situation like this should have been concerned about this case that has gone on for over 10 years. Haven't had a letter written to whoever they are questioning how they are handling this case. So they find it easy and they're entitled to writing now, not even, they haven't even written to the Attorney General, to Justice, or to their counterparts in the Parliament to say we have a concern about this. Now they are writing to the President. Well, they don't even think he's a president. They have very little regard for other countries and their leaders and institutions. That we have, again, come to get used to. We have no complaint. We live their life, we live our lives, and they can think about us the way they want. I have no problem with that. So what do you want me to say about that? But maybe I should also add, I am not aware, or I'm not sure that they are aware of even how they complicate cases of those people they seem to be trying to speak for. It really complicates their cases. I wish I could advise them quietly that that makes it even more complicated. They think they are doing good things in favor of the people they're talking about. But I think such a concerns of that nature that complicate cases even more. So I relate to the Attorney General and Minister of Justice and others concerned with that to deal with the matter. I have nothing to do about it. But for them to have been asking me to intervene or to interfere with cases like that, which, by the way, they don't do, or they don't, in fact, they accuse us many times of doing those kinds of things. It becomes a case. And now it is the same thing they are now writing the president to do. So what is the meaning of it? I don't know.
Sir, as a follow-up, in your last comment, to make it, that could make the case even more complicated, does that connect them personally actually to that case then?
These days I've learned to be diplomatic. That's what I was saying. It shows how they are connected with those cases. All right?
With your permission, sir, may you take the last two questions?
Well, I can see some good people here still wanting to.
Okay, sir.
I think I still have a good time for them.
Okay, sir. Next question from Shinwa.
Murakoze cyane, Your Excellency, nitwa Lütianran, Wuye Xinhua News Agency of China. In addition to the question of DRC, in some media reports, people talk about joint military operation against armed group in Eastern DRC. So if there is a plan of this kind of operation. And the question from our media house is, Rwandan companies are attending the second China International Import-Expo in China, showcase Rwandan products. What's your expectation for the outcomes of this kind of expo? And China is a major trade partner of Rwanda and Africa. So what's your expectation for the trade relations with China in the future, especially in the context that Africa continental free trade area has entered into force?
Good. Yeah, for the meetings that have been taking place, bringing together a number of countries that happened in DRC, were about, again, as we said, to have in place a joint effort of these countries' forces to deal with those armed groups. A number of countries agreed. Actually, more countries agreed on the way forward, and one or two hesitated for reasons best known to themselves, I don't know. But still, work is being done to bring others on board as well to be able to move forward. So I think we will soon find some way. But the most critical country here is actually DRC. So if DRC can decide to work with all of us, which is the most ideal, which is the best. If it doesn't work, maybe they accept to work with one or two or three countries, whether in whatever formula to address particular problems. Still, that is much better than doing nothing. So I'm for the ideal. If it doesn't work, I can lower my expectation, but at least do something that concerns me directly, or work with whoever wants to work with us, and do something. So I think DRC is the most critical country here to deal with, and so far they are in the right direction of agreeing with all of us to do something. The import-export summit or conference or meeting going to happen in China, or happening whenever. It's something we always have about. Trade is very important for countries' economies, for the world, for the globe. We have had ups and downs. We have had, recently we see what is going on between China, America, the biggest economies of this world, and how everybody is being affected. You can imagine if strong economies are being affected, the smaller ones like ours, of course, have our fair share of the burden to carry, or problem. But our desire, whether it's bilaterally or through multilateral efforts, like, for example, with CFTA, bringing Africa and African countries to work with either blocks or single big economies, or, like China, it's always going to be very healthy. It's going to be very good. It's something we want to see happen. And in some cases, it is not normal that somebody is trading with somebody else, and when I'm trying to trade with that person, the other one says, "No, why are you trading with this one?" And forgets that I can ask the same question. Say, "Why are you trading with this person you are telling me not to trade with?" So, but we know how to pick our fights. We don't just pick our fights for the sake of it. In any case, you don't pick a fight with somebody you know you are going to lose against. So you find another way of getting to where you want to be without having to pick a fight with the bigger entities. So the trade arrangements between Rwanda and China, or between China and African economies, For me, the summit expectation is how can we keep improving what everyone gets from it. That's about the expectation. So that China benefits, absolutely, and maybe even proportionately to their own size. But also Africa, whether it is bilateral with the countries of Africa or through CFTA, everyone has to make sure that we do trade that benefits all of us.
Next question from RFI.
My name is Laure Broulard for RFI. I have a question following the Financial Times article that was recently published. So I wanted to know if it was possible to have a reaction on your part, because I wanted to know if it was possible to have a reaction of your part.
Yeah.
Because some people in this article said that the Rwandan government might have purchased this technology and
might have done what?
Might have purchased.
Oh, I was wondering which story of the FT. So there are two stories now.
Yeah, I know. So it's
or even more.
So the one that I'm talking about is the one about the Pegasus spyware. So some people in the article say that the Rwandan government might have purchased this technology and used it to monitor communication of Rwandans abroad. So I wanted to know what is your reaction after this article. Thank you very much.
My reaction is manifold. One, you've just maybe mentioned half the story. The other half, you didn't mention. They singled out people and they gave them names against whom that technology is used, right? Am I right to say that? Because they talked about human rights activists. And then even talked about specific names. Now, I want to explain my point before I come to the actual thing you asked, by saying, first, if this first part is false or is misrepresented, it is likely that the other part is false and misrepresented. Meaning, let me start with the story of the human rights activists. The names that were given are actually names that are known to all of us and should be known to you. The way they are known to me and may be known to others, I don't know how to you. These are actually not human rights activists. These are people, in fact, who have indicted themselves by their own activities, including now the ones for which the people I said are appearing in the court of law here are involved in. That's for a fact now. You can even ask or challenge me on any of these things. I'll give you time. Some of those same people are the same people who are appearing even in the reports of the UN that have already arrived at the UN as people who are part of insecurity and violence in our region, especially in Eastern DRC. Again, that's for a report. It's not me who wrote the report. I'm not one of those investigators. I did not meet them. I haven't talked to them. So now, if a paper, wherever they got their sources from, is already speaking on behalf of, sympathizing with a certain group they call, these are innocent human rights activists the government is acting against. That's already a falsehood that we can take to another step now. The other step is our country, like your country, like any country, does intelligence. You are aware of that. In fact, they even monitor people's communication. That's not even from me. You can read it in the books written by even your colleagues. It's not me. So, if I am in France, where RFI has its headquarters in France, has its headquarters in France. Right. I'm sure maybe you don't, but other people, I think, are careful what they speak on their telephones. So it doesn't matter who, journalists, presidents, whoever. So maybe you don't know that, but if you said you don't know that, I would just accuse you of pretending. Okay, that's another thing. The third, for us to know our enemies and what they do, wherever they are, is something we have always tried to do, like it is within our rights as it is in the rights of all the countries, in this world. Of course, there are rules that govern all these things we do. Probably more things happen discreetly than those that happen in the open. That's why some people will pretend and accuse people of doing certain things that they do even more than the same people they're accusing. I have only read about that story of, not of FT, but the story about the technology. I read that in the news about other cases, because I could read the story of some people, I think, who were killed in Turkey or something. And then I was reading, no, you know it, it's public. And as I was reading that story, then the whole thing was talking about the same technology we're talking about. That I think somebody who was in Canada and another who was in the US, that's how they knew how the person who was in Canada was doing something against a certain country, and that's how they got to know the movement of the one who later on died. It was not involving Rwanda, it was not involving any African country, it was wrong. That's the first time in fact, now asking me about it. But I actually wish I could have access to this technology. I just wish. But I also know that it is very costly. That's what I have heard. I've read about it. And I know how best to spend my money. Because I wouldn't spend so much money over nobody or nothing. There is somebody I saw that they are saying we used it against who lives in the UK. Somebody, what is his name? I saw him in the picture for the first time. I even don't know. I remember somebody in some town in the UK, one of these masqueraders who are supposed to be one of those people fighting the government. Imagine from a town in the UK. I wouldn't spend that money I saw that the technology costs to run after that fellow who was of no consequence. Absolutely absolutely no consequence. Somebody fighting me in the UK. No, I worry about these fellows who enter through Kinigi and they kill people. These are the ones I'm concerned with. But the other one, by the way, who is is fed by UK government. He has no job, he has not, how do I? So it is absolutely nonsense, my dear. So, but that technology they're talking about was not made for me. It's very expensive. I don't have that much money from what I read. But I don't even have anybody to spend so much on following. The few dollars we have, we spend them on education, but we've done intelligence, and we do it, and we are going to do it for the future. That's how countries operate. I don't think Rwanda would be an exception. That's how we get to know. We know our enemies. We know plenty about our enemies and those who even support our enemies. We know a lot about that. But we use mainly human capacity, human intelligence. We are very good at that, for your information. Yes. We really do a good job of that. So, but again, now, something, the last one, which I can't forget talking about. Does it also tell you something? FT, not so long ago, was writing a story about Rwanda faking data, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Then, and by the way, again, through human intelligence, we realized and came to know and have facts that this man who wrote, is it Tom Wilson or something? That his name? The author. Has been working with some of these other enemies of ours. You know, there is somebody who used to work for me here, who lives in Canada. I don't remember his name. Who is just every day faking news about us. So he found a friend in this one of FT. They work together. They are now one and the same. So this person, this one of FT, they wrote, highlights. Again, it's just more about attacking the president. It's not even about anything else. How I dictate whatever is written about Rwanda, when actually Rwanda, everything about it is bad. According to him, everything about Rwanda is not supposed to be good. So if there was anything good, it is because Kagame has dictated it. So in other words, they have dictated things with the economist, with the World Bank, with the World Economic Forum, I have even dictated what Rwandans feel and say about what they are experiencing. He has attributed a lot of powers to me, again, which I wish I had. If what I wished happened the way I wanted it, and I have such a powers, I would be the happiest person. So, but those are the powers he gave me. Now, but from this, now he moves to the accusation in the defense against us, in the defense of certain human rights things, and using certain technology. And one thing I also learned and that was being said was that this technology originates from Israel. So, and Rwanda is a friend of Israel, so by extension, I mean, I wish things would work like that in every day. We would be further ahead of where we are today. We would be very close to our targets. So that's what I can say. Yes, but for doing intelligence, I'm guilty. We do that. We do a lot of it.
Next question, CNBC.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Naringo Fenamuthoni. I'm a journalist with CNBC Africa. After your term as the chairman of the African Union came to an end, how involved have you been with the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement? And also, earlier on, you touched on that for regional integration to be achieved, countries need to work together on their differences, and we are seeing tensions and disputes among African countries. An example is Nigeria extended the border closure to 31st of January. Now, what sacrifices need to be made for the realization of a one marketplace, and is the implementation moving at the pace that it should be?
To try and cut a long story short, integration is a necessity. And it is going to happen, and it is happening. And it will continue to happen in spite of people's differences. Knowing that people's differences will exist. That's why in the middle of trying to bring together the countries covered by CFTA, you are talking about, so there's a difference, there's a problem between Nigeria and Benin. Yes, maybe tomorrow it's going to be addressed by the same people and allow the strengthening of the CFTA side. So some of the things are real facts, so, you know, on the basis of on which things are built or formulated. One CFTA. CFTA means bringing countries together, trading with each other. It's another form of integration. This is a necessity, and it will happen. It will happen with the difficulties, either entirely for the whole region or between some entities within that region. That will happen, because that's the nature of people and their relationships and interests and all kinds of understanding of things. So that one will keep working at it. We always try to bring people closer to each other than being far away from each other. And what my participation you raised, we participated with many other countries, beginning with what happened here. Was it 2017 or when we had a summit here? The signing of CFTA, 2018, last year. Yeah. Countries really came together, and you could see they wanted to have a free continental free trade area, which was a good thing. I don't claim any credit for doing that. I think the countries wanted on their own. What we did, we hosted people here, we gave them dinner, we gave them lunch, we provided a secure environment, we discussed things, and I was just one of the many participants. And, I happened also, fortunately, to have been chairing the African Union, which was an honorable task for me to carry out. But many things happened because other leaders wanted them to happen, not because I wanted. So that is where we are. But there is progress. Progress is being, and in fact, trading will start in July next year.
Next question from TV5.
Hello, Mr. President. My name is Margot Chevance. I'm the new correspondent of TV5 Monde and Jeune Afrique in Kigali.
Of which one?
Sorry?
Of which paper?
TV5 Monde, the channel.
Okay.
And the newspaper Jeune Afrique.
Yes, I'm familiar with the Jeune Afrique.
Yes. And I hope soon with TV5 Monde as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I have a very different question. Rwanda is known for its women empowerment policies. Is the country ready to legalize abortion on any cases?
Is what?
Is Rwanda ready to legalize abortion on any cases?
Well, I can't dictate anything about that because I think we have been careful in Rwanda. We have always tried to reconcile people, ideas, and not just be fixated on one thing and say it is this or nothing. Because some people have fronted the line of saying it's either freedom for abortion for any case or nothing. The others are saying, anyway, it's just either abortion or no abortion, right? And for us, we think either position is problematic. Just have those rigid things, no, it's either this or this, nothing. We have always tried to find something in between. That's how we have operated. And looking back, I think we are better off than those who have gone for either this or nothing. You see what I mean? Yes. So we try to take the best of both sides and come together. If it is abortion, can it be qualified? Can we say, under what circumstances? Are there certain circumstances where this can be allowed or justified? And we allow people to go through that and say, but then we say, but we arrive at that because we are also asking, are there some bad things about abortion? Maybe somebody will find something that is negative about allowing abortion or not allowing it. So for us, we keep this middle line. It has served us well on many other things. Yes, we are not rigidly for this and rigidly for that, unless it demands that kind of thing. There are situations where you can say, no, this is a no-go area. You can't do it here. Yes. So that's how it is.
Next question.
When am I going to have the next interview with the Jeune Afrique? I have enjoyed having long, very testing interviews with Jeune Afrique. With Francois Souda. Is he still working for Jeune Afrique? He's a very tricky man. When he's asking you questions, you have to be careful what you say. But he's a good man.
Next question from the Chronicles.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. With your permission, I will go back to peacemaking in the region. We know Burundi also had a a problem in 2015, and President Museveni became the mediator assisted by Mkapa. When he took over the EAC chairmanship, that issue I read in the papers that it was also mentioned. Can you help us and inform us what happened with the peacemaking in Burundi? A related question also on peacemaking in DRC is, as you mentioned, the president DRC is interested in working with regional countries to solve the problem in Congo. Even Rwanda and Angola signed an agreement to fight
and solve problems in the neighbors of Congo.
And the neighbors of Congo.
Yes. So they're not just interested in solving their problems in the Congo, but actually they're interested in having problems solved with the neighboring countries who have groups based in Congo operating in those countries.
Yes.
It's just an addition.
But the UN has categorically said it will not support the intervention or support from Congo's neighbors. What is your view? Congo has been, the UN has been in Congo for over 20 years. Finally, Mr. President, also as the chairperson of the East African Community, the ESC Council of Religious Leaders has written a letter, wrote a letter I think yesterday, saying that they were supposed to meet the Secretary General of the ESC. They waited for 6 hours. He never turned up. He instead said that he will not meet them. In the letter they say that they will write to you as the chairperson complaining. What is your comment on that? Thank you.
Well, I'm being asked to comment on something I'm not aware of. I haven't received the letter, nor did I actually know the story. But when I'm sure that will come up by the time we have the summit. I probably will have known, but we will ask what the issues are. One, what they wanted to see him about, but why also would he refuse to see them? And then we will be able to discuss it and come to a conclusion. I don't know what they wanted to see him for. I don't know why he would have refused to see them. Or delayed them and later on refused to see them. I don't know. But either way, it doesn't sound good. Something must be amiss and needs to be fixed. So we'll see how to fix that. On the first part of the question you raised, I want to make some clarification for sure. One, President Museveni has been the mediator, not by the virtue of being the East African Community chair at the time he was the chair. He was also the mediator even before he became the chair. I think he became the chair for 2 years. But before that, he was still the mediator. So it has nothing to do with the chairmanship. But why it was discussed during this last summit when I was becoming the chair, both the mediator and the facilitator were expressing frustration. In fact, the facilitator, in the name of former President of Tanzania, Benjamin Mkapa, for him he said he's done his best, which is true, he did all his best, but he felt his best efforts were being wasted, and he wouldn't enjoy working so hard at something and then end up with nothing all the time. So one could understand his frustration. Then President Museveni also did express some reservations and frustration. And in fact, expressed possibility of handing it over to somebody else. And the summit unanimously said no. We can't have everybody being frustrated and giving up on everything. You've been at this for quite some time, and you know, it's understandable, people will be frustrated, there are issues and so on, but please, we ask you to continue. And that involved me as well, in suggesting that the person who is a mediator, who has been a mediator before he was chairman, and during the time he was chairman, and should continue even after. To allow even that continuity, especially when the facilitator was being adamant and said, I don't want to continue. So losing the facilitator and the mediator at the same time, we thought was going to complicate matters. That is the story about that question you raised. Now, on the Congo side of things, I think it was clarified how Congo has been helpful in wanting to work with the neighboring countries who have problems associated with groups based on the Congo, which is a good thing. The second aspect of it, which I need to clarify, is actually the UN is not opposed to that. In fact, the UN participated in the meeting. Those who had doubts here and there are not that the UN was not involved in terms of, in opposing it. They were actually supporting it. They were even part of the discussions. So they are happy to work with the countries to deal with the problem they were supposed to deal with in the first place. So I think discussions will continue and the problems will find a way forward.
The question from TV1.
Murakoze, nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Fulgence Kizuwera, nkorera TV1. Turabashimira cyane kubera ukuntu mwita ku itangazamakuru by'umwihariko umwanya mwaduhaye tukabasha gutanga ibitekerezo nk'abanyamakuru twebwe ubwacu cyangwa tugafasha n'abaturage gutanga ibitekerezo bisanzuye biciye mu bitangazamakuru dukorera kandi ibisubizo bikabasha kuboneka kenshi biciye muri izo nzira. Turabibashimiye. Dufite ikibazo rero nk'itangazamakuru ryigenga kugeza ubu ngubu hari ingero z'ibitangazamakuru byinshi bigenda bikina.
Ariko hari ibitigenga. Habaho ibitigenga. Is that biba hano gusa cyangwa n'ahandi nuko habaho ibyigenga n'ibiti everywhere ku isi niko bimeze?
Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, hari itangazamakuru rya leta.
Tell us stories ko byose byigenga. Okay.
Ikibazo dufite, hari ibitangazamakuru byinshi bigenda bifunga imiryango, hari noneho n'ibihari byitwa ko bihari ariko bigaragara ko nta kintu urebye bikora nabyo ejo bishobora gufunga imiryango, yewe n'ibifite imbaraga nabyo ntabwo byizeye ko ejo bundi bizaba bigikora. Ntabwo ari ikibazo cya politiki, nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, kuko icyo cyo mwaragikemuye, ahubwo ni ikibazo cy'ubukungu. Turarwanira ku isoko ritoya, noneho iryo soko tukarihanganiraho n'ibitangazamakuru bya leta.
Isoko se kuki rigomba kuba iry'u Rwanda gusa? Mwagure mujye no mu bindi bihugu, isoko rizaba ribaye rinini. Mwe ntimujya mu integration?
Yego, birashoboka nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, ariko mu Rwanda kenshi niho twibanda kuko itangazamakuru rirakiyubaka bigendeye no ku mateka yaryo. Ariko ahenshi iyo tuhageze, kubera ko tuba duhanganye n'itangazamakuru rifite inkunga ya leta cyangwa rigendera kuri bije ya leta, usanga kenshi nko muri leta aho tugiye gukomanga bahageze baravuga bati ntabwo ni RBA birumvikana.
RBA niho haba na The New Times. Navuga nabyo byose bimwe, ndavuga uravuga ko ari ibya leta.
Ni nkaho ari bimwe nubwo byitwa ko atari byo.
Ariko bambwiye ko bagiye gukinga nabo ko bafite ikibazo, nabo ko bameze nk'abo. Have had RBA, have had The New Times, bajya bita ko ari mouthpiece ya government. Ejo bundi numvaga abantu bambwira ngo bagiye gufunga. So ibyo bavana muri leta byo bibi.
nyakubahwa perezida wa repubulika bashobora gufunga ariko wenda bo babona make noneho abigenga bo nta na make babona bivuze iki gisubizo nimwe
babonye se bamaze iki ko bafunzwe nimwe muzafungira umunsi umwe
birashoboka twebwe mufite ibisubizo byinshi ariko twebwe nk'ubwacu ko dutekereza
reka tugere ku ngingo
yego
twafashe
icyo twifuza ko mwadufasha iri tangazamakuru cyangwa ibitangazamakuru bya RBA bivuye kuri puresha bikoreraho nk'ibidafite bije ya leta bigakora bikagira percentage wenda biri bugarukireho bashaka amasoko mu buryo bukomeye cyane nk'ubwo natwe turwaniramo kandi bo bafite n'indi bagabanye nibura kugira ngo
iyo formulation iragoye okay why don't you mwazicaye okay ngira ngo icyo the best thing muzicare abigenga n'abatigenga mugire ikiganiro muvuge ngo okay let's be fair to each other mwarese tugakora dutya mubyumvikaneho right hanyuma nimara kubyumvikana mubitugezeho turebe niba hari icyo twafasha kitazakuvanaho kuba independent n'uriya niba adashaka kuba independent nabyo ntazabiveho ariko ubwo tugashaka igisubizo cyabyo sibyo byaba byiza
yego murakoze
nawe ugize byangora ariko mwicaye ubwanyu mukavuga reka tugabane sibyo
yego murakoze cyane nyakubahwa perezida wa repubulika
alright sindaho twari turangije ariko hari uri hariya
murakoze cyane nyakubahwa perezida wa repubulika nitwa Oswald Mutuyeyezo murakoze cyane nyakubahwa perezida wa repubulika nitwa Oswald Mutuyeyezo nkorera radio TV 10
ukorera
radio TV 10 inkuru y'icyumweru mu by'ukuri nari ngiye kubabara kuba tubihana itavuzwe ni kuri ya guverinoma mwahinduyemo ukuntu
gutyo nyine
ibyo ngiye kuvuga hari minisiteri iriya y'umutekano mu gihugu yari mwayikuyemo muri 2016
none ikaba yagarutse
mwarayigaruye none iziyobowe noneho n'umuntu ukomeye wari umugaba mukuru w'ingabo kandi mbere ubundi twatumenye ko iyoborwa ry'umusivili usibye ko nta formule ihari twabibonaga dutyo gusa tukaba twibaza ni iki cyari cyatumye ivaho ni iki gitumye igaruka ariko cyane cyane ni iki gitumye igaruka ikindi ni umunyamabanga wa leta muri minisiteri y'ibikorwa remezo uriya mwanya kera habaga hariho na babiri muri abagabo none n'uwari usigaye nawe twabonye nta wundi mwashyizemo minefra Minister of State twabonye mutarashyizeho undi naho dufite amatsiko kuri iyi nkuru navuga y'icyumweru yavuzwe mu Rwanda murakoze cyane ikindi twese ko mwavugaho ni imisoro ku mitungo itimukanwa iriya nteko ishinga amategeko yacyuye igihe kuko yo iraseswa yasize umusaraba ntekereza ko n'abadepite bari barimo bazawuheka aho imisoro hari inzu izaba ifite agaciro ka miliyoni 80 iyo ni sample ikajya yishyura umusoro w'ibihumbi 800 ku mwaka iyo situation izabaho niba iri tegeko ridahindutse twagira ngo rero mugiye icyo mubivugaho nyakubahwa perezida wa repubulika murakoze usibye ko na Jean Pierre Kagame basabye kugira icyo muvuga kuri uyu munsi mukuru nyafurika w'itangazamakuru nta kimwe aravugaho murakoze cyane
ni bande ba RBA bavuze mutigenga ba Yolande mujye kubasengerera kwanza nicyo narinzize ariko nabisobanuye navuze ko ni byiza ko at least by coincidence nagira uyu munsi twahuye naganiriye namwe ntari mbiherutse ni byiza ku by'umusoro umusoro ibintu by'umusoro ntaho bitaba ikibazo ariko kandi nta hantu batishyura umusoro nabyo byose ni uko ariko sinumva umuntu wubatse inzu ya miliyoni 80 aba afite ahavana kuki yagira ikibazo cyo kwishyura 800 ku mwaka sinumva ibyo ari byo kugira ngo maze ibyo imisoro y'ibintu bitimukanwa nk'inzu nabyo ni ibintu bibaho ahantu hose nzi banza ari twe twari ahubwo iyo wazaga impamvu tutigeze dusoresha imitungo itimukanwa yarasoraga so at least ubwo noneho turumvikana kuri principle igisigaye ni umubare gusa kujanisha aho ngaho hahora hahinduka rero kandi hahora hafite ibitekerezo bitandukana bibirwanya cyangwa bibishyigikira ntabwo bijya biba ikintu kimwe gusa ngo umuntu avuge ngo ntabwo turabyanze cyangwa twese ibi turabikunze ntibijya bibaho ngira ngo rero mu buryo bwo kubishyiraho abantu nyine bakwiye gushyira mu gaciro ukareba ntukabye gukabya ni ukuhe kudakabya ni ukuhe ese ni 800 ese ni 600 ibyo ni ibintu nanone abantu baganira ntabwo ari ibyo bavuga ngo nimushyireho ibi cyangwa nimuvaneho ibi ariko abantu iyo babiganiriye bareba ukuri bakamenya ukuri ibya leta rero guhinduka nagize ngo mwari mumaze kubimenyera ntimuramenyera ko bihinduka uko biba byaje niko bigenda leta ijya kujyaho mbere hose bayigiyeho ukuntu byagiye bihinduka bigira uburyo iriya minisiteri ya mbere hariho ibintu bimwe unakora kubera ko hari impamvu zabyo cyangwa hari ikibazo ushaka gukemura wagera ahantu bitewe n'ibyagiye biba ukaba wanavuga utari ku ibi ntabwo bikiri ngombwa reka noneho tunagabanye n'icyo bidutwara ku kiguzi hanyuma nyuma yaho hashira igihe ukaza kubona utari ku hari ikintu gishya cyabaye cyangwa igishya kiriho cyangwa ibyo nibwiraga nshaka kugabanya nko ku kiguzi ntabwo nabibonye uko bikwiriye reka ibyo nibyo bituma umuntu ashobora gusubira ku kintu kimwe cyangwa ikindi bijya no kuri minisiteri y'ibikorwa remezo ushobora gushyiramo na 3 na 4 bitewe nabo uko bateye cyangwa uko imirimo iteye ukaba washyiramo umwe ukuntu ibintu byahindutse n'ahandi ukabona byose biragenda neza so bikiza nyine ni uko n'ibyo nakubwiraga ntabwo tujya ngo tuvuge ngo nzakora iki cyangwa se nzakora iki n'ibyo bibiri gusa izo uragikora cyangwa ntugikora uteye kugenda ureba igihe ugezemo icyo ushaka icyo bigusaba ugahindura uburyo n'imikorere nicyo bigenda n'ubu ngubu tuvuge nk'ibi by'umutekano mu gihugu cyangwa iki bishobora kuba bitewe n'ibyo ubona mu karere hose n'icyo ariko bitugiraho ingaruka ushobora kuvuga uti wakora reinforcement byafasha niho bigenda bituruka yes
murakoze bitwa Amahoro Claudine nkorera RwandaTV 10 uyu munsi abanyeshuri bo muri kaminuza y'u Rwanda bahawe impamyabushobozi n'impamyabumenyi twifuzaga ko niba hari ubutumwa mwagenera urwo rubyiruko rurangije amashuri ya kaminuza kuri uyu munsi mwabutanga.
barabe barize neza gusa, hanyuma kuba barangije turabishimiye, ni inyungu ku gihugu no kuri bo. Baje mu isoko ry'imirimo, abanyarwanda dukeneye ibintu byinshi bigomba gukorwa, bishaka ababyize, ababifitiye ubumenyi n'ubushobozi, ubwo n'abandi biyongereye ku bushobozi bwari buhari, so turabyishimiye. Icya gatatu, warangije ishuri kubyishimira, natwe abandi mu gihugu twakiriye turabyishimira, ariko ntakagire uwibeshya ngo yibwire ko ibintu byoroshye gutyo gusuza ukinjira ahantu ibintu byose bikagenda neza. Ugomba kuza witeguye guhangana n'ibibazo. Hanze hari ibibazo twese bitureba duhangana nabyo, ntawe ukwiriye kuza ngo yagera hariya akavuga ngo ariko kuki mutambuye ko hari ibibazo aha ngaha, barabifata mu dute. Bazahura n'ibibazo, ariko kubera inyigisho babonye, kubera ubushobozi babonye, mbese bikwiye kuba byarabateguriye guhangana n'ibyo bibazo. Buri munyarwanda wese, ari uwarangije kera, ari utararangiza, ari abandi, bose bahura nabyo. Naho icyangombwa ni ukubishimira ko ubwo ni umubare wiyongereye, ni ubushobozi bwiyongereye, nk'uko igihugu kigenda gikura gikenera amaboko menshi.
Thank you very much.
Ari RwandaTV nawe ushaka kubaza? Nagira ngo ibyo ni ugufotora gusa. Go ahead please.
Murakoze cyane nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika. Nitwa Richard Kwizera, nkorera Kigali Today. Muri iyi minsi hari ikibazo cy'inda ziterwa abana bato, abangavu. Hari debate.
Ntabwo ari muri iyi minsi gusa, birasanzwe mbizi kuva kera, kandi imico mibi ni ibintu bibi, ariko komeza.
Hari debate cyane cyane activists bifuza yuko abangavu bajya bagira uburenganzira kuri contraceptives, bakwitabira gahunda zo kuboneza urubyaro. Ni debate, barasaba ko itegeko ryahinduka. Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika we iyo debate uyumva ute?
Debate ubundi itegeko rihinduka ni rimeze rite?
Yuko hari urugero rw'imyaka
badaha
contraceptives. Bamwe barasaba yuko wenda byibuze nko ku myaka 15
batangira kubaha
umwana yajya agira mu gihe yananiwe kwifata, bikaba ngombwa ko akora imibonano mpuzabitsina.
Bishobora kuba ari ukubatoza kutamenya kwifata. Reka nkwereke mu buryo umuryango nyarwanda, abanyarwanda hagomba kuba hariho ibyifuzo, hari amategeko, hari norms zindi zitari n'amategeko, ariko byose ni ibintu abantu bagenderaho babamo bibagenga ubuzima bwabo. Ntabwo nibwira ko biriya byo kuvuga ngo abana kuri urugero ntibakwiye kuba kugira ngo babe baterwa inda, ni ikibazo kidakwiriye kuba, ariko bikarenga bikaba, kuko turi ku isi ni abantu, ntabwo ibintu byose bigenda uko ubyifuza. Iyo debate rero ngira ngo yakemurwa no gushaka gukoresha uburyo bwinshi butandukanye. Ntabwo ari ikibazo nanje gutekerezaho cyane, ariko ndaguha bitewe n'uko bibajije gusa binjiye mu mutwe, wenda byagenda bihinduka. Icya mbere twakomeza ikintu cyo kuvuga ngo umwana utagejeje iki gihe ntabwo yari akwiye kuba guterwa inda n'uwo ari we wese ni ukuvuga ngo ubikora aba ari mu cyaha kuko ahenshi ikibazo kinahari hari ubwo bareba umwana wananiwe wo kwifata sinamenye unanirwa kwifata uwo ari we yabaye umukobwa yabaye n'umuhungu bose bananiwe kwifata ntibikabe ibyo uruhande rumwe gusa ngo ejo kuko njya mbyumva abana bagaterwa n'inda bari mu mashuri bakirukana umwana w'umukobwa uwamuteye inda ntawe ushaka kumumenya cyangwa n'uwamumenye ntacyo bimugarukaho ntabwo ari byo icyaha ni icya babiri niba ariko bishaka kuki wahana umwe gusa undi ukamwihorera ariko ntibizanatubuza guhora abantu mu miryango ahantu aho ariho hose kubirwanya ntibivuze ngo uzabica burundu ibyo ntabwo ari cyo bivuze ni ukubirwanya no kubimanura to the minimum ariko the same time bikagira n'ingaruka ku wabikoze in fact abenshi nk'abo bana niba yatewe inda afite imyaka 15 akenshi uzasanga atayitewe n'ufite imyaka 15 usanga uwamuteye inda afite imyaka 30 cyangwa 40 hari n'abagera muri 50 ugasanga nabo bateye abana so weight uburemere bw'ikibazo buri cyane kuri abo bandi ntabwo ari umwana gusa mu buryo buri realistic rero bwo kurwanya ikibazo twabanza tukemera ngo iki ni ikibazo tukabyumvikanaho sinzi ko hari ushobora kuvuga ngo iki ntabwo ari ikibazo n'ikibazo giteye gite twagifatiramo tumeze ni ukuvuga ngo ukore statement of principle bivuga ko tubyanze bidakwiriye nubwo tuzi ngo bizaba kuko ikintu kucyita icyaha cyangwa kuvuga ngo uzagihanira gihanukire ntibice icyaha ariko biragabanya kandi koko n'ingaruka zikwiriye kuba ziba aho kugenda rero nabwo ushobora kuvuga ngo ugiye kumenyereza kubigira ihame noneho ugiye guha abana imyaka 15 kujya ubaha contraceptives psychologically ni nkaho ubabwiye uti birimo element nk'iyo kuboshya usa nk'uwabyoroheje nkaho ubwira uti komeza wikorere ibyo ukora uzarindwa n'iki uzarindwa na contraceptive bifite iyo message bitanga and I don't think it is a good message ntabwo nibwira ko ari ikintu ariko reka abanyarwanda bazabiganire turebe ariko ndumva yavuga ngo dushyigikire kuvuga ngo abana b'imyaka 15 bajye bahabwa contraceptive kubera ko hari uwo bicika akagenda I think it is problematic wowe wabyumva gute ku ruhe ruhande muri debate wowe
nyakubahwa perezida wa repubulika uko mbyumva icya mbere ni ukuhangana n'ikibitera abatera inda
aho turi kumwe rwose
icyo nicyo cya mbere ariko nanone ntitwirengagize byabaye abana barabyara akaba burden ku muryango burden kuri society akava mu ishuri so icyo nacyo
ariko se uzahera kuri 15 kuri 14 hari n'uwo ushobora kuyita 14 urahera he
simbizi
urumva ko hari ikibazo ngira ngo ni nka ririya tegeko rindi nabyo ngira ngo hariho imyaka abantu barongorana bashyingiramo ni 21 so iyo nayo ni debate igomba kuba yari iriho ariko abantu still barakomeje bahitamo 21 hagomba kuba hari abavuga batari kukimuta bikomeza 18 ndetse na 17 buri wese ashatse yavuga ati na 17 byagucitse kuki ariko itegeko iyo ryagiyeho riratuyobora ntabwo bivuze ko ntawe uzica iryo tegeko ariko biba bitanze umurongo society yagenderaho ibisigaye bikaba gucikwa cyangwa nyine ibyo na consequences ariko ugomba kugira aho uhera nahera rero aho bikwiye kuba bihera tari 15 14 bikegera aho ngaho ariko mwahereho ko munkosora kurongorana navuze cyane bavuze kurongorana ubwo gushyingira cyangwa gushakana ariko byose bifite ikibazo bifite meaning nibyo in fact hari abantu njya numva no ku maradiyo bahinduye ikinyarwanda cyangwa iki ariko ni uko ushaka kuba polite bakashaka kuvuga gutsinda amagambo amwe ntibayavuge kurongorana babihinduye ikindi kintu kandi ntabwo ari byo kurongorana ni ukurongorana ntabwo bivuze biriya watsinze udashaka kuvuga mu ijambo umuhungu n'umukobwa iyo bahuye bishobora kuvamo n'iyo nda nyine babyita kurongora ubu hasigaye hari ikinyarwanda kibyita kurongorana ntabwo ari byo icyo gikorwa ntabwo bacyita kurongorana kurongorana ni ugushakana ni kubaka urugo sibyo no gushakana utabivuze neza nabyo abantu bakumva ko ari ibintu biri temporary umwe yashatse undi muri ako kanya twiga ikinyarwanda neza okay ntiturangije I think so mugire umunsi mwiza what is it you want to say something newe impamvu aho gutasabye ijambo go ahead
murakoze hasigaye amezi abiri cyangwa ntabwo ageze kugira ngo tugere muri 2020 vision 2020 it's a symbolic moment for us even though we have vision 2035 but vision 2020 has been in our minds for many years. I'd like to get your perspective. First of all, I'd like to ask you, if I had asked you this 20 years ago and said, how do you foresee this? Did you have any idea how this is going to be? But also, based on that, what is our learning from this? What is our take home? What does it tell us for now, after 2020?
There are probably very few things. I would have given you a definitive answer on if you had asked me 20 years ago. There are very few things. Even if you had asked me, said 20 years ago, if you had told me, are you sure you'll be alive with 2019? I would have told you, I don't know. Things even as they have arrived, things as they have happened over the years, the growth of the economy, the stabilization of the country, the reconciliation process, the relationships you have had with the countries that have matured into a very good partnership that has led to one thing or another. Including, you remember, even from the beginning, when people used to give little chance to Rwanda, even to survive as a nation. Remember that. 20 years ago, no one really seemed to be sure Rwanda would survive. Nabanje kuvuga ibyanjye personally, but even as a nation, people didn't or were not sure whether the nation would survive. But it survived. So all we did at that time, we could just think of, it's like drawing a wish list of saying, I want to be here at this time, I want to know, despite these problems, my vision is to achieve this. And then towards that, you put in everything you have, your thoughts, your actions, to see that you reach there. But really, there were no guarantees, at least even in a very complex situation, there were no guarantees that you would be there. But it didn't have to stop us thinking or wishing to be there. So 2020, we had said by 2020, the economy should have grown like this, and our status as an economy, middle-income country, would be this size. So maybe it is not at that size we wanted, and we are not, maybe it is 85% there. So the good thing about it is, what one can draw from that is, by the time you are hitting that mark and you find you are at 85, you start rolling back things as they happened and thinking, and then say, why didn't I achieve 90? Why didn't I achieve 95? Actually, why didn't I hit 100%? Then say, oh, maybe if I had done this, if I had not done this, if I had, so that prepares you now for another, the same thing you're talking about, another 15, 30 years ahead. Still you have where you want to be 15 years after 2020, or 30 years after 2020, but you must draw lessons from what happened with our Vision 2020 for the 20 years we were here. And another lesson for me personally, I learned, was that some things were seemingly insurmountable. You would even have wished to say, no, we can't be there, let's be realistic. But being ambitious has its own value. It pushes you as hard as it can. If you are there, so much the better. If you are not there still, then you fall for the realistic position and accept it. And say, well, I aimed too high. I didn't reach there, but it was not a bad thing to aim too high. It pushed you actually maybe to go higher than where you would have been otherwise. If we hadn't aimed high and reached 85 as we have, let's say by 2020, maybe we would have found ourselves at 65. But the other 20 difference has been a result of having been pushed hard by your ambition. Isn't it? That's the way I would prefer to see it. So let's keep aiming high, let's keep being ambitious, but above all, let's work towards it. Let's really put into this process whatever we have and see how far we go. And involve as many people, directly or indirectly, as you can. Because at the end of the day, you need everybody to reach the target, or you want everybody to benefit. Right? Okay. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, sir.